الحمد لله رب العالمين القائل في كتابه المبين وذكر فإن الذكر تنفع المؤمنين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الناصح الأمين نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وأصحابه والتابعين لهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As of now, the news has already been widespread about the tragic event that have taken place dealing with Kobe Bryant and many of the other people that were on the plane that crashed. And I was requested to give a talk, bi'ithnillah, as a way of reminder of the Islamic perspective of offering condolences to people who are not Muslims, who are non-Muslims, whether it's permissible or impermissible. So in this talk, inshallah ta'ala, I chose to title this talk, which you see, offering the condolences to Kobe Bryant and the rest of the people that were on board of the plane crash. And the reason why I did that, as you should see in this talk, bi'ithnillah, it seemed pragmatic. Some people are going to judge the title, might not even look at it, and might say the brother is offering condolences to non-believers and don't understand the issue. Is it permissible? Can you offer condolences to non-believers, or can you not offer condolences to non-believers? You're going to learn that in this video, inshallah. Also, the concept of rest in peace. Is it permissible? Can you not say it? Can you say it? You're going to learn about that as well. But before going into it, we must understand that some people in life have different impacts, okay? There's no secret that Kobe Bryant was a professional athlete, and he was somebody that was famous, okay? And being as though that was the case, and especially in the time that we live in, even with technology and social media and so forth, you can learn about something in Africa and you're not even in Africa. You can learn about something in China and you're not even in China. So it makes the world small. So a lot of other people might feel some type of way, even if they never met Kobe Bryant or whatever, but he was a famous athlete. So we can't ignore that fact. It's not like when so-and-so passed away and nobody really know of them. As the ulama talks about the ulama who are mushtahir, that are very famous, that support. The death of a scholar is not like the death of a commoner. It's not the same, all right? And we're not putting Kobe Bryant on the level of a scholar, so just bear with me. All right, so you might see a lot of people sending their condolences to Kobe Bryant, to his family, and to people that was on that plane crash, and that's because in this society he had a status, and his status was of that of celebrity, that of a professional athlete. So he is known around the world. So you're going to have people offering their condolences, all right? As Muslims, what should you do? Okay, and that's what we're going to address. Tayyib, before we begin to that, I want to understand the concept of death. First and foremost, death is a firaq ish. What do we mean by firaq? It's a separation. Also, it is a bab. It's a bab for what? It's a door. In Islam, we are told that death is a separation of the soul from the body. Henceforth, the event of death. That's what death is. There is no death once the soul leaves the body. Death only exists because the body have to part, the soul have to part from the body. That's what we are taught in Islam. All right? There are many ayats and hadiths pertaining to this as far as the proof or the validity of what I'm saying. Secondly, Allah tells us in the Quran that indeed you will tarkabu tabaqan tabaqa. You will go from stage to stage. And the ulama and tafsir for Surah Al-Inshiqaq, they explain that this stage from stage is that your soul will go from one level to another level. We know this, right? So if that's the case, it is a door. As the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ said, that once it happened, the people are in paradise and so forth like that, it's going to be a caller that's going to call out, and death is going to come in the form of a ram. Death is going to come in the form of a ram, and Allah Jalla wa Ala is going to say, the angel is going to what? It's going to call out that there'll be no more death. They're going to slaughter the ram, so death will not even be more in existence. So we know that this is an authenticated hadith. Tayyib, who is the controller of death? Allah Jalla wa Ala tells us in the Quran, وَمَا كَانَ لِنَفْسٍ أَن تَمُوتَ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ كِتَابًا مُؤَجَّلًا فِي سُورَةِ آلِ عِمْرَانَ. That there is not a living soul, unless, I want you to pay attention to this verse. There is not a living soul, except that soul All right? It cannot die. Do you understand this? No soul. And the reason why I'm saying this and I'm stopping here is because that includes people who are not Muslims. We cannot keep thinking that Allah Jalla wa Ala is separate from the people who are Muslims and non-Muslims. No, Allah is, as Allah Jalla wa Ala, He says in Surah Al-Zukhruf, Allah Jalla wa Ala, He says, وَهُوَ الَّذِي فِي السَّمَاءِ إِلَهٌ وَفِي الْأَرْضِ إِلَهٌ وَهُوَ الْحَكِيمُ الْعَلِيمُ. في Surah Al-Zukhruf, which is the 43rd chapter of the Quran, Allah Jalla wa Ala says, and He, talking about Allah Himself, and He is the one who is the Ilah, the one deserving to be worshipped in the heavens. وَفِي الْأَرْضِ إِلَهٌ, and also the Ilah that deserving to be worshipped on the earth. So Allah is not separated. He's the same Lord that's in the heavens, is the same Lord on earth. Allah also says in the Quran, if you Surah to Maryam 4:19, Allah Jalla says what? وَإِن كُلُّ مَن فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ إِلَّا آتِ الرَّحْمَنِ عَبْدًا, and that there is not, okay, anyone that's in the heavens or the earth except that they're going to have to come to Ar-Rahman as a servant, which proves that everyone is a servant of Allah, whether they Muslim or non-Muslim. The reason why I'm mentioning all of this first before we go into anything else is because I want you to understand that the affair or the arena of death is in Allah's hands. It's in no one else's hands but Allah. All right? That's first and foremost. No one die. An infant, a toddler, a teenager, an older person, elderly person, a person who's in a strong infant, no one die except that Allah has decreed it. And they can't die except it's by His permission or decree. Allah also says in Surah Al-Munafiqun, which is the 63rd chapter of the Quran, Allah tells us, وَلَنْ يُؤَكِّرُ اللَّهُ نَفْسًا إِذَا جَاءَ أَجَلُهَا وَاللَّهُ خَبِيرٌ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says what? He said, and وَلَنْ يُؤَخِّرَ a soul, وَلَنْ يُؤَخِّرَ, Allah will never delay a soul from passing on. Do you understand this? From a person dying when its time or its appointed time has been reached. Allah will never stop it. He will not stop it. وَلَنْ يُؤَكِّرُ اللَّهُ نَفْسًا إِذَا جَاءَ أَجَلُهَا. And Allah is Kabir, is all aware of what you do. Each one of us have a time period that we're going to die. So Kobe Bryant dying today, even though it was tragic in that event, it was decreed. Just like the people that are along with him, he had a 13-year-old daughter that was on there. And there were some other people who had there who also had family members who passed along that was on that plane. So I want to get that understanding. Now that we got that out there, that Allah is the one who controlled death, now we understand what death is. Now let's move on to the issue at hand. And that is, can we offer condolences to non-Muslims? All right? Can we say sorry for your loss? Can we show some compassion towards the family members who have passed away? All right? You're going to see that the alim, and the reason why I'm saying the alim here, because many people what they do is they like to just talk from their emotions. We don't do that. In Islam, we have Qala Allah, Qala Rasulullah, all right? And then we have the ulama who have reached a certain level that understand the book of Allah and the sunnah to extract those benefits so that we can benefit from it. And that's what I try to stick to that format. So the ulama, looking at the evidence that has been presented within the kitab and the sunnah, because that's where our sources come from, that they say that the people of knowledge have agreed on the prohibition of giving condolences to the family of the kafir who wage war against Islam. Okay, now you have to understand something here. It's a prohibition, but with the condition of who? The ulama, as Allah Himself. Okay, if we sort of to Saf, Allah Azza wa Jal, and I believe that's the Surah Mumtahana, Allah Azza wa Jal, He divided the non-believers into two categories. The combatants and the non-combatants. All right? Those who fight against Islam, those who wage war against Islam, they are the combatants. Allah talks about them in the first verse. And then in the second verse, Allah talks about those who do not wage war against Islam, but they are still non-believers, but there's a certain way we have to deal with them. Sheikh Salih Fawzan have a nice piece that he talks about them in his explanation of Talatatul Usul, where he breaks down the difference between the non-combatants and the conditions to deal with each. Do you understand? So, the prohibition that the ulama have agreed on is that those who wage war against Islam, that we don't offer them no condolences. They don't get none whatsoever. If they were someone who was an enemy to Islam, they were someone who was detrimental to Islam, to its people of Islam, if they was known to do that, then they do not get any condolences, and then we do not offer them, so they are out excluded. So that leads us to the next category, the non-combatants. All right. So you might say, Kobe Bryant was not a Muslim, but was he known to wage war against Islam and his people? Was he known to wage war against Islam and his people? Do we know this? Is there any proofs or evidence that this is what he spent his life doing? All right. So the next category, this is where the ulama differ concerning. That is the non-combatants. Okay. Now, some of the ulama, what they have done, the majority of the ulama, they have viewed that it's permissible to give condolences to his relatives, and some of the people of knowledge withheld. So there was a group from the people of knowledge who didn't give any view. And then some said that it wasn't permissible, or they allowed it if there was a benefit or if you hope that the kuffar will become Muslim. Okay? So some of the ulama, they say no, it can be done if there's by way of some encouragement or there's a benefit in you doing so. Okay? Then you can do it. And then he says, the majority of the ulama is of the view that it is permissible to give condolences. So I want to stop here and I want to explain something to you guys. That's why I titled or called it what I called it this video, offering my condolences based on the simple fact that I believe Kobe Bryant and those who might have been on that plane crash were non-combatants of Islam, from the non-believers. So from a humanity point of view, which we're going to see in this verse that he's going to quote for his evidence that the majority of the ulama uses for the permissibility of giving condolences, you're going to see what Allah says. Stop thinking that Allah Jalla wa Ala is not just. We just talked about this earlier. And stop thinking that we are not all from the same family. We are all humanity. So not showing compassion to another person, to another, that's not Islam. That isn't Islam. And knowing it, and it's funny because you'll find the person who wants to take a strong stance towards another individual or another person or another group of people, you'll find that they want to take this strong stance, right, in misappropriate places, because they don't take it when it comes to dealing with immediate situations that if it was their family members that were non-believers, would they take the same stance? Huh? Think about it. So we gotta really be understanding, and this is where we get the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ stood up for a Jew that was being buried. The Messenger of Allah stood up, and when he was questioned about it, he told him, was he not a soul? Was it not a soul? We have a hadith that the Messenger of Allah visited a Jewish child on his deathbed who was a non-believer, and he encouraged him to take shahada, and he was able to take shahada. So we have to understand compassion. The Messenger of Allah was called Rahmatul lil Alameen in the Quran. He was called Rahmatul lil Alameen. What do that mean to you? He wasn't Rahmatul lil Muslimin, wa lil Mu'mineen, wa lil Muhsineen faqat. He wasn't only a rahmah to the believers, to the Muslims, and to those who do well. Only no. He was a rahmah lil Alameen. What is Alameen? That's everything, jinns and man, and all that in Christian. He was a rahmah. So if he was a rahmah, that means that includes the non-believer as well. Do you understand? He was a rahmah to the Alameen. Why would he not be compassion? Do you understand that? So compassion is something we must have from humanity. It doesn't mean we get carried away, because I'm going to go into that. That don't mean we get carried away. It don't mean we get carried away like some people do. That don't mean we get carried away. But we do understand, just from one fellow human being to another, death is tragic in all events, whether it's a believer or a non-believer. And if you lose a loved one and I lose a loved one, it's still going to hurt. Do you understand? This is something that is. But it's a proper way that we have to respect this. Tight. He says, as for the kafir who did not wage war against Islam, we talked about that. He says, allowed it. What is correct is that the majority of the scholars have said that it is absolutely permissible and that it is from al-birr, righteousness, that we are not prohibited from doing or offering condolences. And they use as their adillah or their ayat or their proof is the statement of Allah Jalla wa Ala, la yanhakumullahu. Allah does not forbid you deal justly and tuqsitu, that you deal justly and kindly with them, those who fought not against you on account of your deen. and not drive you out of your homes. Rarely Allah loves those who deal with equity. Okay, so the Mumtahina, verse 8. And this is similar to visiting them when they are sick. It has been authentically narrated from the Prophet ﷺ that he visited a sick non-believer and called him to Islam. Okay, this is known in the deen. This is why it's important to learn your deen. All right. Okay, what should be said when you do visit them? What can you say? All right. There are certain things you cannot do. There are certain things you cannot say. And there are certain things you could say if you visit them. What should be? The point that you should observe whenever you offer condolences to non-believers, right, is that, one, it is not permissible to offer dua. Do you understand this? When you give a condolences to a non-believer, you do not offer dua. Do you understand? In other words, you don't seek forgiveness for them. You don't pray for Jannah, paradise for them. Do you understand that? These supplications is prohibited in Islam. It's not me making this up. This is the deen. And I'm going to give you the proofs and the evidence for this. But this is not permissible. The Prophet ﷺ has been prohibited in Surah At-Tawbah. We're going to give you the verse for that. Ibrahim alayhi also has been prohibited even for his father. Do you understand? So we cannot, under no circumstances, offer the dua for them. Okay, the only dua that we can offer for a non-believer is Yahdikumullahu wa yuslihu balakum, or something similar along those lines. May Allah guide you and erect your affairs to al-Islam. This is what we can do. Tayyib? We cannot do anything other than that. Something along those lines, all right? And we have to get away from the misconception. It's a big misconception. Everybody that dies not in paradise. Stop that. It's not from Islam. You have no evidence to support that view. Everybody that died is not in heaven automatically. Oh, it's a good soul, he died. He with Allah. La. What are you talking about? Where do you get that? You don't have knowledge of the unseen. No one informs you. You don't have no book of enlightenment for that. So don't make a statement that so-and-so is automatically in heaven because they died. La. That's not the truth. In Islam, we are told that there are three places. There are three abodes. It's Ad-Dar, it's Ad-Dunya, where we at now. It's Al-Barzakh, before the Qiyamah, right? Which is the place in between, the partition. And then there is the hereafter, all right? Which will only end up in two destinations. Al-Jannah wal-Nar. That's how it is, all right? There's no other way. There's no mysticism, nothing. Islam laid these things out clear, okay? So, we cannot offer condolences for them in a sense that we cannot supplicate for their forgiveness or invoke Allah's mercy or ask for paradise for them. This is what we cannot do. All right? This is only to be done for someone who is Muslim upon Tawheed. We can do that for them. That's one of the rights that they have when we make dua on their behalf. Even if the dead person, the non-believer, had impeccable manners and was trustworthy, it's still not permissible to offer these supplications for him or her. Do you understand that? He was known to be good. He was known to do this. He was known to do that. She was known to do this. No. Look at the proof. The hadith of Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, it comes in Sahih Muslim. She said, Ya Rasulullah, O Messenger of Allah, Ibn Judan in Jahiliyyah, he used to keep good relations and feed the poor. Will any of that benefit him? He sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that would not benefit him if he did not save for even one day. Oh my Rabb, forgive me for my sins on the day of judgment. As for attending, and you pay attention to this, this is important that we must understand. The irstijab, we went over this concept too. We dealt that with the ayat that comes in Surah Al-Baqarah. A lot of people think that at the time of death, this is what you're supposed to say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We already explained that the ulama said that that's not only when it should be coined to be said for when somebody died. That's not the only thing that you should say when somebody died. There's other things that you can say. And also, when something is replaced, Allah is going to replace it with something better. When you lose something or something happened to you or tragedy happened to you, whether it's death or anything outside of that, it's permissible to say that statement. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And you can refer back to that video that we did, and we explained that, alhamdulillah, in those verses from the ulama of the past. They explained how that statement is to be used. Allahu a'lam, Allah knows best. So he says here, so in other words, we cannot argue on the view that someone was a good person and that allow us to make concessions for them. Okay, they might have been good. It's not for us to say that they weren't. But notice how Allah set things up. It's not for you and I to accept anybody's actions. We can't even accept our own. You understand? Allah is the one who accepts actions. So this is why it's important you need to understand that. So if Allah is the one who accepted, we can't come around and say, because he did good, he did this, Allah accepted. We can't make Allah accept anything. All right? So we have to handle that and deal with that the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala want us to deal with that. Okay? Okay, also following their funerals or being in the church procession, we should already know that. That's not permissible, like the Jews. So we stay away from that. I want to go into our next talk about resting in peace, but I want to bring this one verse real quick, or our next point, resting in peace, rather. I want to bring this verse that I was going to tell you in Surah At-Tawbah. Okay. Now, Allah Azza wa Jalla says, مَا كَانَ النَّبِيُّ مَا كَانَ لِلنَّبِيِّ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَن يَسْتَغْفِرُوا لِلْمُشْرِكِينَ وَلَوْ كَانُوا أُولُو قُرْبَى. And this tremendous ayat, Allah Jalla wa Ala said, is not for the Prophet, nor is it for the believers. So Allah didn't single out just the Prophet. I want you to pay attention here. Allah did not just single out the Prophet. So no one could come along and say, well, only the Prophet has been prohibited from this. No, Allah has actually mentioned the believers as well. You understand? So it's not for the Prophet nor for the believers to seek forgiveness for those who are mushriks, who practice shirk or upon kufr. It's not permissible. This is the ayah. It doesn't change. The ayah have not been abrogated. Okay? This holds to this day. So Allah said, even if they be the most closest of kin, they're your near relatives. Even if they be the most closest of kin, you still cannot make an exception for that. And Allah talks about that even with the Prophet ﷺ. He couldn't do that for his mother or his father. And Ibrahim couldn't do that for his father. All right? So if these are great men, and these are the best men of mankind, both Ibrahim and the Prophet ﷺ, because they both was given the name Khalil. They both was the beloved friend of Allah Azza wa Jalla. Right? So if that's the case, how about us? How are we going to say, okay, now there's an exception going to be made for us? Nah. No, you can't do it. If it wasn't made for them, it can't be made for you. وَإِنَّمَا يَدْعُ لَهُمْ بِمَا يُنَاسِبْ حَالَهُمْ بِحَثِّهِمْ عَلَى الصَّبْرِ. So what you do is, the only thing you're going to do when you're giving them condolences is that you're going to address them accordingly to that and to their situation. What is the appropriate thing for their situations or their circumstances? Right? By way of encouraging them upon remaining patient. All right? The one is in control, and that you should look at that because death is bukta. Do you understand this? This concept that we must also understand is that death is bukta. And the Quran, Allah used this word. What is bukta? What is I'm talking about? Death is all of a sudden. And that's the way it is. The Prophet ﷺ, he drew lines and authenticated hadith. And he told the people that death is closer to each one of you than your shoelaces. Right? What did he mean? He was showing the people that the death was closer to anyone's shoelaces. You don't know when you're going to die. And trust me, when it happens, I don't care who it is, it always happened all of a sudden. Right? You know, everybody don't get the chance of having a long illness, sitting on a deathbed or so forth. Everybody don't get that chance. Like in the case of Kobe Bryant, that was a plane crash. No one could have planned for that. Not any one of them getting on that plane could have planned for that. It's all of a sudden it happened. It's tragic. That's how death is. Allah Azza wa Jalla says sunnah. And that's what the Shaykh is saying here. You remind the people that it is the sunnah of Allah. This is his sunnah, that he allowed death to come all of a sudden. This is why Allah Azza wa Jalla remind us as believers in the Quran. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu taqullah haqqa tuqati wa la tamutunna illa wa antum muslimun. Why do you think Allah tells us to do this? Why? Because death is bukta. It comes all of a sudden. So Allah says, "O you who believe, fear Allah as he ought to be feared, and die not except in the state of Islam." In other words, the ulama say, how are you going to do that? Practice Islam until death reaches you. As Allah told Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, worship Allah, worship your Lord until the certainty come to you. And the ulama, they said that the certainty here in this verse, meaning the motu sughra, the minor death, which is the death of the soul separating from the body. Tell you, anyway, let's move on to resting in peace. Can we say rest in peace? Some people get carried away. The shirts that people be wearing, the the teddy bears, the different things people will be putting up, the quotations, the, spreading the pictures like on social media. We might not have teddy bears. What we do is we put all of the things that they did, reminding us what they done. We put up their pictures. We do this and that. Still the same form of a certain type of celebration or ritual when someone passes away. You have to be careful, O Muslims. O Muslims, you have to extremely be careful. Do you understand? Because the way we deal with the dead has all been laid out in the Sunnah. And all of that fall under the Bible, what we call ihtiram. Respect for the dead. Respect for the dead is a process. It don't start once the funeral happens. That's not the respect for the dead. The respect for the dead don't start when the funeral happens. The respect for the dead starts at the moment of the time when death is certain. Okay? The condolences, the ta'ziyah, is a part of the respect for the dead. The way that you bury them is a part of the respect for the dead. Okay? The way that they are placed in there, visiting, the dua that you make for them is a part of the respect for the dead. What you do on their behalf is a part of the respect for the dead, such as paying off their debts, such as offering offering supplications for them so they can be firm at the time of questioning. It's all respect for the dead. It is a whole process. Do you understand? So in that way, if you truly look at it like it's supposed to be looked at, you're going to have a certain respect for them. And having that respect for the dead is that you're not going to do something that counteracts that or contradicts that. Like, we are not allowed to speak ill of the dead. The Prophet ﷺ prohibited us from that. We don't speak bad of someone who passed away. That's not even from our deen. I don't care what they did in the past. We don't speak ill of them while they're dead, unless, for example, if you're talking about Fir'aun, la'anahullah, because Allah Jalla wa Ala creates Fir'aun for what he done to his people and what he done to Bani Israel. That is something that is known. That is something that is permissible because Allah Jalla wa Ala actually used it. But I'm talking about outside of that, of what we don't know, that's not a case in the Sunnah and so forth, we cannot do it. Tayyib? So, all of these different things, like when Martin Luther King passed away, you spreading all of his quotes, his quotations. First of all, Muslims, you don't have to follow the kuffar in that. Number one. That's not the way that you respect somebody's being dead. That's my whole point of bringing this up. All right? Rest in peace is not legislated at all in the deen of Islam. All right? The intimate detail of rest in peace. And I know there's some people who are going to argue with me. I know some people want to feel, like I'm being dogmatic, that I'm only one-sided, and that I'm a religious bigot, and the only thing I'm thinking of is I'm not being compassionate, and how can Muslims not tell people rest in peace? What is wrong with saying it? I know some people are like that. But me, I like to use proof and evidence. And I know you don't have no proof and evidence that the Prophet ﷺ nor his companions ever said rest in peace. There's not one thing that exists like that, not even remotely close. What I'm going to give you, though, rest in peace is a phrase that's been coined from the Catholics. How many of you, I don't even know this? Really back with the Templars. Some people say the Catholics, but really this concept of rest in peace was when they said that when the souls depart, right? When the souls depart, they wanted the souls to find peace in the afterlife. So they would say rest in peace in terms of to God, or it was like a soft prayer, so that God can grant them peace so that they can move on and pass on within the afterlife so they don't be tormented, right? Now you might say, we're in the 21st century. Nobody know about that, and we're not using it like that, right? Okay, I got something for that as well. So you might say, okay, we don't mean it like that. So actions are by intentions. We don't mean when we say rest in peace, it means that. Okay, I hear you. Even so, the concept of someone resting in peace is twofold. One, you don't have no knowledge of the unseen that the person is resting in peace. You don't have no knowledge of the unseen or what's taking place with the person once their soul separate their body. You don't. So for you to say rest in peace, for you to even hint at the fact of them resting in peace, or that a such a possibility is, then you are taking a share of having claim to understand what's taking place in the hereafter, and you don't. You're not in authority for that. So you shouldn't say something you're not in authority to say in anyway. Two, the other fold thing is that we know from the authentic Sunnah and even from the Quran, we understand that there is an inquisition. Do you understand that? There is an inquisition. And what I mean by inquisition, there is a questioning taking place. Munkar Nakir is there. When the soul leaves, this is what we're told. They are sitting that person up. They are actually questioning that person. And there are 3 questions that are being asked. This is from our belief. This is what we believe. And this hadith, by the way, is not a hadith that is ahad. And even though we do accept ahad hadith, but it's also a hadith that is mutawatir. All right? It is a recurring hadith, which means it's impossible for it to be in a lie. There are multiple companions that have narrated that when the soul leaves the body, what takes place is that there are 2 angels that sit the soul up and they question them. This is our belief. So, for us to come around and say rest in peace, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he have prohibited us from even saying so-and-so died as a martyr. Think about it. So-and-so was a shaheed. He said, how do you know he's a shaheed? How do you know? These are the matters of the unseen. How do you know? You can't claim something you don't know. So if you want to say rest in peace, then even from that standpoint, you cannot say rest in peace. Okay? You cannot say rest in peace. What you should and what you could say is that may Allah make this person firm at the time of questioning. And if you don't believe in that they're being questioning, or because we're talking to Muslims here, we're not talking about the non-Muslims, but you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have, you can't ask mercy for the non-believer anyway. So, but you ask Allah Jalla wa Ala to make them firm at the time of being questioned. Or Allah make them firm at the time of being questioned. We do not say rest in peace. All right? This is not permissible at all. And I don't care how you spin it. I don't care if you say actions or by intentions. And another thing I want you not to do, some people argue that the Prophet ﷺ stood up for a Jew. And I mentioned this hadith earlier. And some people argue that. First of all, I want to tell you something about the common misconceptions of taking hadith at English value and face value. Number 1, hadith have shuruh. Do you understand that? Hadith have shuruh. It have asanid. It have chains to these. It have mutun. It have different routes or riwayah. Certain things support others. Some might not be so authentic as you think. Some might be fabricated, which you cannot work with at all. Some might be weak, but you don't know the levels of weakness, and there are many within the hadith itself. You're not an expert in hadith, and you don't know. So henceforth, if you know you haven't studied that, you don't know about the grading of hadith, what's weak and what's that, you cannot take what's admissible, what's inadmissible, and stuff like that, what's fabricated or not, then it's binding on you to go back to the people who are well versed in that to explain to you what is being said in that hadith, what is the murad, what is the intent, how it's understood exactly. You have to now blind follow at some level. Do you understand? So for you to come up and tell me you read a hadith in English, because I'm about to get to that point too, and you read a hadith in English and now you got the shah, because this is what you want off your emotions, you understand what the Prophet ﷺ was saying in that English hadith. First of all, did the Prophet ﷺ spoke English? No. Did the Prophet ﷺ speak Arabic? Yes. Is you reading it, what he actually said? Because if you read what he said, it was in Arabic. So then the wording in Arabic had meaning. Okay? The expression in Arabic had meaning. Did he use a prohibited la? Did he use a la nafiya or a la nahiya? What did he use? Was it a khabra? What was it done? Was it mutlaq? Huh? Was it am? Was it qayyid? Do you even understand these terms? Was it any of these things? So you're not the expert. You don't know what he actually said. So don't use the English hadith. It's weak for you to try to base something on that. No. You submit to those people who are experts in explaining that narration. Now, when you go back and do your research and you say that this hadith of the Prophet ﷺ standing up for the Jew, then you tell me what the ulama have said about this hadith and how they used it as istidlal or proof and evidence, and then you make your conclusion and base that on that and see if you can use it in your argument. But don't bring me a hadith that you don't even know nothing about, because you don't know nothing about, and I don't have to take that from you because I know you don't know. All right? So you have to be careful, man. Don't do that. We don't work with those type of things. You cannot say rest in peace, period. You cannot. But what you can do is ask Allah to make that person firm. Now, that was my advice I wanted to give to the Muslims. Now, my advice to the non-Muslims, all right, throughout this tragic event. One, always take in consideration about death. Death is a reminder for every one of us. And what death should serve as a purpose is that, one, there is someone who orchestrated death. And acknowledging that that someone who orchestrated death, he placed it there for a reason, so if he's the one in control of it, then we lease owe that person the respect that's entitled to him. Do you understand? Because you must go back to the Creator. Whenever death happens, it's tragic, but you must go back to the Creator. This event is showing you that you don't have nothing in your hand, and that it does not separate between someone famous, someone rich, someone poor, someone old, someone young. It doesn't separate from anyone. No one has this control. Not even with everything a person accomplished in life. They cannot ward off death. So if this is out of your hand, as Allah Jalla wa Ala tells us in the Quran, from the 5 things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala know, which they call the 5 things of the ghayb, which only Allah possess. What did he say? 2 of them is clear. وَمَا تَدْرِي نَفْسٌ. Pay attention, huh? مَاذَا تَكْسِبُ غَدًا. And the soul does not know what it will earn tomorrow. وَمَا تَدْرِي نَفْسٌ بِأَيِّ أَرْضٍ أَن تَمُوتَ. And the soul does not know in which part or which land he would die in. Kobe and them didn't plan that plane crash. They didn't know what's going to happen. Period. All of a sudden. What part of the land did he die? Did he die in the land that he lived in? Did he die this? No one knows. This only Allah knows these things. These are the 5 things of the unseen. That should tell you that you need to start giving the Creator his due. We can sit around for days and give condolences for Kobe and his family. We can sit around for days and give this. Death serves as a reminder. And don't let it pass you by. Okay? This is to the non-believers. Do not look at death and say, okay, that was for this person or that person, and you don't take away the reminder. Whenever you see death, the death is this, that it should be telling you you're next. When you see a person in the grave, you should be seeing that you're next. And if you're next, you need to be preparing yourself for it. And what is the preparation you need to be making? You need to have an answer for your Maker. Because your Maker did not put you on this earth aimlessly or purposelessly that you can move about. This is something that we negate from our Creator. It's 2 things we mentioned earlier that are negated from our Creator. One of them, those things, is negated from His essence, from His self. Allah Azza wa Jal does not play with His creation. As Ibn Qayyim, one of our scholars, told us, وَكَذَلِكَ الْأَبَثُ الَّذِي. Okay? That abathu, that people have, meaning this aimlessly working by. The Creator is negated from Him, that He does things haphazardly, without purposely. He says, تَنْفِيهِ حِكْمَتُهُ وَحَمْدُ اللَّهِ ذِي الْإِتْقَانِ. He says that really what we understand from this is that the very wisdom of the Creator Himself negates that He will create something in mere gesture and play. The very wisdom and His praise in itself, in His praise, which He's deserving with absolute certainty, it negates the fact that the Creator can create something from mere play. Allah did not create us for mere play, for mere gesture. It's not a pastime. It doesn't benefit Him that you've been created. No, you have a purpose. So let Kobe Bryant, death, and the people in that plane crash serve as a purpose to you. You have a Maker. He didn't place you in here just so you can eat, sleep, and party and do whatever you're doing. He placed you in here so that you can worship Him. You owe Him that right. This is a right that He has exclusively upon you. If you're going to allow and be affected by the death of Kobe Bryant, then be affected in the right way. Then be affected in the right way. Allow it to serve as a reminder that the Creator has placed something upon all of us that we need to give Him His haqq, man, His right. That's what we have to do. And that's my advice sincerely to every person who have not accepted Islam. My advice to you sincerely is that you only have a certain amount of time. And that certain amount of time, you have to know your Maker. And it is possible that you can know your Maker in this life because He sent messengers, prophets, and He sent divine revelation. And the last one that He sent that's untampered with is the Quran. Do you understand? I don't care how you want to argue with it. Well, it's in Arabic. I don't understand. I don't care how you want to look at it. What is a bunch of Arabs? No, it's the truth. The Prophet, Allah Azza wa Jalla, says in the Quran, فَمَاذَا بَعَدَ الْحَقِّ إِلَّا الضَّلَالِ. There's nothing after truth except falsehood. It's so much true that the Prophet ﷺ has been prohibited. O non-believers, he has been prohibited in Islam to force someone to accept Islam. Allah says, La ikraha fi din qad tabayyana ar-rushd min al-ghayy. Allah said there is no compulsion in religion. He cannot force anyone to accept Islam. No one can force another to accept Islam. Allah Jalla wa Ala says the truth stands out clearly from the falsehood. Allah also says in the Quran that is no compulsion. He says, La takafu la laysa laka bihi ilm. Do not follow nothing you have no knowledge of. This is Allah telling us in the Quran. So, O non-believer, you cannot be forced into Islam. But allow this to serve as a reminder. Take those good memories of any of the people that you lose. Take those good memories and also take that the tragic event happened, it was decreed, and know that the Creator has a date for you. One of our Khalifas, who was the Khalifa and successor of the Prophet ﷺ, he was the third one, which is Uthman ibn Affan. You might don't know too much about him, but I'm going to give you a beautiful statement that he said in a sermon that he gave to the people. And he says that each day the angel of death is going around visiting people. All right? And it's by the grace of Allah that he missed your house. He didn't get your soul that day. He said, but tomorrow he's going to come around and snatch your soul. So just because he didn't get to you that day, don't mean he's not going to get to you. Every one of us is going to have a visit from the angel of death. Every one of us. But how are we going to meet him? What are we going to say? What are we going to be prepared? That's what you're supposed to do now. So if you want to mourn someone that is dead, then mourn yourself. And another salaf of our past, she came in and she saw that her husband was crying and she started to cry. And he said to her, why are you crying? She said, I cried because I see you crying. He said, cry for yourself because I'm weeping for myself. Cry for yourself because I am weeping for myself. Do you understand that? Cry for yourself. You have your own questioning you have to deal with in facing your maker. And I have my own thing that I have to deal and face my maker. So we ask Allah Jalla wa Ala to allow us to be just. We are all from humanity. It's permissible, as you've seen in this talk. You can offer condolences to those who are non-combatants from amongst the non-believers. And it can serve as a way of giving dawah and show them that we are not barbarics and we're not people that are inhumane and that we are not sympathetic or we're not compassionate. But we do not go carried away. We do not offer dua for them, and we do not ask Allah to have mercy upon them, and we do not ask Allah to forgive them, and we do not ask Allah that they're going to be in Jannah. These are the things that we stay away absolutely clearly. It's not permissible. Nor do we say rest in peace. Nor do we do what other people do. We stay away from that. So pick a middle course. Offer condolences, show your compassion, but don't get carried away. That's my advice, inshallah ta'ala. Whoever said that was incorrect, and our talk today is from ourselves and the shaitan. Whoever said it's correct is from Allah Jalla wa Ala. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Jazakallahu khairan.